Joining me now, Mikheil Saakashvili, the former president of the Republic of Georgia. He's also serving on the advisory council to the President Petro Poroshenko in the Ukrainian issues that are ongoing. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on your show.
I know you knew Boris Nemtsov personally. You talked to him, in fact, just days before his death. What did he share with you?
Well, we discussed Ukraine, obviously, because he was preparing his report on Ukraine. But then when I showed up at this lunch, he asked me why I was without bodyguards. And he told me, remember, after he knew the story when Putin promised to hang me by different parts of my body, he said, never ever go anywhere without the bodyguards. And
wow.
Here he was walking in the center of Moscow at night. Without any bodyguards, without any protection. And so, yeah, it's really sad and it's tragic. But it's also true that if you look carefully, I mean, he's one of many that have died in these kind of circumstances, and the list is getting longer and longer.
So he was talking to you, maybe jokingly talking about your safety, the threat against you. Was he worried about being targeted?
I think he was aware of the issues. He was. I was asking him whether he was worried to go back to Moscow. He said he wasn't afraid of arrest, certainly, but I told him that he should be afraid of other things, and he seemed to be agree to that. Look, I mean, look at the list. Anna Politkovskaya, who also died who was killed also in downtown Moscow. I knew her very well. Just spoke just before she was killed to her. Then you have the whole people like Litvinenko, or people like Berezovsky, or people indeed like whom Putin hated most of all in Europe, like President Kaczynski of Poland, dying in plane crash in Russia. Now, I'm not claiming that all of them were either killed by Putin or were killed in the first place. There were some circumstances were questionable, but this looks weird that basically all these people of whom Putin had a very extensive distaste and hatred, they somehow all perished in very dubious or outright, criminal circumstances. And so when you are dealing with mafia state, then it's no longer surprising. The whole climate of intimidation, the way how they reward killers, how they encourage killings, that's hardly surprising. I was surprised Nemtsov was not killed until now.
And I wanted to ask you about the timing. Yeah. Why now, if indeed this conspiracy theory were to prove true? You mentioned that you were talking with Nemtsov about Ukrainian issues, the ongoing fighting in eastern Ukraine, which we know has taken the lives of thousands just since mid-April.
Well, one basically can speculate that with the falling oil prices and with the sharply declining living standards, we also discussed it with Boris, people like Nemtsov, who didn't seem to be terribly dangerous to the regime like a couple of years ago, have become more dangerous now. And whoever did it maybe had this in their mind. But otherwise, the Ukrainian situation certainly casts a big shadow over it, because there's a big key moment right now. There are important decisions need to be taken about Ukraine. The truth has to be broken also to the Russian public.
Did
and
he
to the
have
world.
some truths that the world was going to learn about?
Well, I mean, the world only knows most of the facts.
Yeah.
I think Russian public is brainwashed, and basically they are not informed of those facts, but the way that's how the system works. But even stating the basic facts in Russia have become very dangerous. But regarding what the Ukraine, there is two things. In Russia, the truth is not known. To the rest of the world, the truth is known, but enough action is not taken. And I think from both regards, Putin is now working in all directions, in all the fronts, not to allow Russian people to know the whole truth, and not to allow at least the free world, the Western world, and the United States to take right decision and to react in the right way to outright Russian aggression in Ukraine.
And there perhaps, if that's the case, that explains his approval rating at 86%, we learned just in the last month.
Look, this is most tragic. I feel more tragic about what will happen in reaction to Ukraine here, say in the United States. We've been going around trying to tell people about it. I sit at the office of President Poroshenko. I see every day he gets news of new deaths, new casualties, terrorist attacks, new attacks from the Russian side. And then I hear every day world leaders calling. They are calling there. There's too much calls. There are too much calls and not enough help coming in. And you know, Ukraine gave up in the 90s several thousand nuclear warheads on the insistence primarily of the United States. Now they're just asking for several thousand anti-tank missiles, for God's sake, to be able to stand up to this aggression. So that's a very key moment for history. What's happening in Russia? Russia is projecting unfortunate violence inside Russia, but also even more outside Russia. And people around Russia are scared. And we need to the free world to react, because it's also that's what's at stake there, not just fate of Ukraine or individual people like Nemtsov or any of us, but basically it's what's at stake, the idea of free world justice.
And that's why you're here in the U.S., in fact,
absolutely.
right now, to make your case
Absolutely.
on behalf of the Ukrainians to Congress this week on Wednesday. Before we let you go, I want to play some sound.
We have a hearing at the Senate committee on the war in Ukraine. I hope it will cast some light on what's happening there.
I do want to play some sound from Nemtsov's girlfriend, who was with him at the time that he was killed, just to bring this full circle as we're continuing to follow the investigation into the death of Boris Nemtsov. And she had a chance to speak today and essentially said she did not get a good look at the gunman. Let's play it for you.
Where did Boris's killer appear from?
I don't know. I didn't see, because this was happening behind my back.
And by description, did this person react to your request immediately or started calling?
When I turned, I only saw a light-coloured car, but I didn't see the make or number of the car that was leaving.
Mr. Saakashvili, in 10 seconds, is she in danger now?
Well, I think, I guess she's leaving Russia for now for Ukraine, but the reality is that basically the climate of intimidation is so much present everywhere in today's Russia. Look at most of the opposition figures either are gone to the exile, or are in prison, like people like Navalni, or are dead like Nemtsov. What kind of country is that? It's becoming really a very, very dangerous place for itself, for its own citizens, and also for the rest of the world.
Thank you so much for being